She was invisible to most, just a shy hotel cleaner going about her day. But when the phone rang and no one else was around, she answered. Fluent, confident, flawless Mandarin poured from her lips. What she didn't know, the man standing behind her was the hotel's most powerful guest. By morning, her entire life would begin to change. Liang kept her head down as she worked the morning shift at the Grand Sterling Hotel. Most guests never noticed her, she preferred it that way. Quiet, efficient, invisible. But everything changed on a Tuesday morning when a shrill ring echoed down the empty hallway. She glanced around. No concierge, no staff in sight. Just an unattended phone at the guest services desk. Instinctively, she picked it up. She said, her Mandarin calm and polished. Behind her, footsteps slowed. Unbeknownst to her, Mr. Alexander Grant, a powerful tech CEO and guest of the hotel, had just exited the elevator. Fluent in Mandarin himself after years of business in Beijing, he froze mid-step, stunned by the effortless fluency of the young cleaner. He said nothing, simply watching as she politely redirected the caller and hung up. Liang returned to her cart, unaware of the impression she'd made. The next morning, the hotel manager approached her, eyes wide. Mr. Grant asked to see you. Heart pounding, Liang assumed she was in trouble. Instead, she found herself face-to-face with the CEO in the executive lounge. He greeted her in Mandarin. She replied, hesitantly at first, then with more ease. They spoke for nearly an hour. Alexander wasn't just impressed, he was intrigued. How had a hotel cleaner mastered not only his language but the nuance and grace of a native speaker? By week's end, Liang had a new opportunity, a job offer in Mr. Grant's company's international division. From hotel halls to corporate boardrooms, her journey was only just beginning. Sometimes, the smallest moments reveal the greatest talents. The lobby was quiet, the hum of a distant vacuum the only sound. Emma Lin moved swiftly, her cleaning cart rolling beside her. She had worked at the Wellington Grand for 3 years, long enough to become a shadow in the halls, present but unnoticed. That morning, the front desk phone rang sharply. The receptionist had stepped away, and the ringing continued. Emma hesitated, then answered. She said smoothly, her Mandarin fluid and professional. Behind her, an older man paused mid-stride. Tall, composed, sharp-eyed Jonathan Pierce, CEO of a global investment firm staying on the top floor. He had just returned from a trip to Shanghai. The accent, the precision. Emma's Mandarin wasn't just fluent. It was flawless. He watched as she courteously handled the caller, then returned to her cleaning cart without fanfare. The next morning, a note arrived at the manager's desk. Please have the young woman who answered the phone in Chinese meet me in the lounge. J.P. Emma arrived nervously, expecting a reprimand. Instead, Mr. Pierce greeted her in Mandarin. He said, smiling. They spoke for over 20 minutes. Emma told him about her upbringing, her studies in Beijing, and how family circumstances had pulled her away from university. She never thought her language skills would matter here. But Pierce thought differently. I could use someone like you on my Asia-Pacific team, he said, sliding a business card across the table. By the following month, Emma was on a plane to Hong Kong, no longer a cleaner, but a translator and assistant with a future. All because she answered a call, and he was listening. Noah Caldwell was used to control. As the CEO of a billion-dollar logistics empire, surprises were rare and rarely welcome. He was in town for a discreet meeting, staying at the Roseberry Hotel, where everything was polished, predictable, and professional. That morning, as he reviewed financial forecasts in the lounge, a flurry of motion at the front desk caught his attention. The receptionist was missing, and the phone was ringing non-stop. A hotel cleaner, young, with quiet eyes and a nervous stance, stepped forward. She answered in Mandarin. Fluent, graceful, and without hesitation. Noah paused, intrigued. His company had recently expanded into mainland China, and he'd spent weeks combing through resumes of supposed language experts. None had spoken with such clarity or authenticity. He watched her handle the call, her posture shrinking slightly once it ended. She glanced around, then quietly returned to her cart. She hadn't noticed him listening. Later that day, Noah asked the hotel manager about her. "That's Mei Chen," the manager said. "Bright girl. Keeps to herself. Helps send money back home." Noah requested to meet her the next morning. Mei arrived, clearly anxious. But when Noah addressed her in Mandarin, her eyes lit up, cautiously, then with confidence. They spoke for nearly an hour. He learned she had studied linguistics but had to drop out to support her family. The hotel job was stable, humble, and far below her potential. Noah made a decision right there. 3 weeks later, Mei Chen walked into the headquarters of Caldwell Global as a junior analyst on the Asia strategy team. Her life had changed with a single phone call and the curiosity of a CEO who just happened to be listening. It wasn't just luck. It was preparation meeting an unexpected discovery. To most, Ava Chen was just part of the background, a quiet hotel cleaner at the luxurious Harrington Suites. She moved through the marble corridors with practiced silence, unnoticed and unbothered. It suited her. She'd learned to make herself invisible. But talent has a way of shining through, even in silence. One rainy afternoon, a commotion at the front desk pulled her attention. The receptionist had stepped away, and a call kept ringing. Guests were waiting. Instinctively, Ava set down her cloth and answered. Her voice was calm, confident, and unmistakably fluent in Mandarin. Unbeknownst to her, a man seated in the lounge had looked up from his coffee. Ethan Ward, CEO of one of the most powerful logistics firms in the world, had just returned from a turbulent merger in Shanghai. His ears perked at the sound of flawless Mandarin, spoken not by a diplomat or executive, but by a woman in uniform with a dusting rag in hand. He watched her handle the call with poise, then disappear quietly down the hallway. Curious, Ethan asked the hotel manager about her. Ava, the manager replied. Keeps to herself. Used to study languages, I think. Left school after her father got sick. The next morning, Ava was summoned to a private lounge. Expecting a complaint, she arrived nervously only to be greeted in Mandarin by the CEO himself. What followed was a conversation that shifted her world. By the end of the week, Ava had a job offer, language specialist for Ward Global's new Asia team. A single act of initiative had revealed the gift she'd kept hidden for years. Because sometimes, all it takes is one moment for the right person to see what no one else ever bothered to notice. The hallway was quiet, lined with polished wood and muted carpet. Amelia Wu pushed her cleaning cart along the 5th floor of the Halston Regency, humming softly to herself. It was just another shift, another day of blending in. Until she heard the phone ring at the front desk down the corridor. No receptionist in sight, and the ringing didn't stop. She hesitated, then walked over and picked it up. She said, her Mandarin crisp and precise. From around the corner, Daniel Reed, CEO of a global shipping firm, froze mid-step. He had just returned from months in Shanghai negotiating expansion contracts. The language was fresh in his mind, but the voice he heard wasn't that of a front desk agent. It was calm, native, and deeply professional. He peered around the wall and saw her, a young woman in a cleaner's uniform, gracefully handling the call. Amelia hung up, unaware of the eyes watching her. She turned to push her cart when Daniel finally spoke. He said gently. Startled, she turned to see the sharply dressed man smiling at her. Their conversation unfolded naturally, first in Mandarin, then English. He learned she'd studied international relations, but family circumstances forced her to leave school. The hotel job helped pay bills. Daniel was struck not just by her language skills, but by her presence, her clarity, her poise. By the following week, Amelia found herself in a new role, language consultant for Reed Global, working on their Asia-Pacific outreach. It was a moment she never could have planned, a hallway, a ringing phone, a stranger who listened. Sometimes, life changes not with a grand event, but a chance encounter and someone willing to look beyond appearances. Maya Liang didn't like attention. She preferred quiet corridors and early shifts, her presence barely noticed at the upscale Belridge Hotel. Her uniform was crisp, her cart neatly organized, and her eyes always on the floor. It was safer that way. But fate rarely waits for permission. It happened just after 9 a.m. The front desk phone began ringing endlessly. The receptionist had stepped away, and guests were starting to glance around. Maya, passing by with her cart, hesitated. Then, heart pounding, she picked it up. Her Mandarin was fluent, smooth, instinctual. Unseen just steps away, Julian Hart, CEO of a global hospitality tech firm, froze. He had spent years in Asia and instantly recognized the quality of her speech, not just the language, but the confident tone behind it. He watched silently as Maya resolved the call and quietly returned to her duties, eyes downcast as always. But Julian couldn't ignore what he'd heard. The next day, the hotel manager approached Maya. "Mr. Hart requested to meet you," he said, looking just as surprised as she felt. Maya nervously stepped into the executive lounge, expecting a reprimand. Instead, she was greeted by Julian himself, with perfect Mandarin. Their conversation lasted nearly an hour. She explained how she had once been a linguistics student. Her dreams paused when her mother fell ill. The hotel job was a lifeline, but never the plan. Julian smiled. Maybe it's time to pick that plan back up. Within a month, Maya joined his company as a bilingual support specialist, soon traveling internationally, her confidence blooming. It all started with a single, unplanned moment, a phone call, a hidden skill, and someone who saw what no one else had noticed. It was a shy cleaner's moment of fate, and she seized it.